The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are also not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
All right, and welcome to the inaugural, the premiere, the first episode of the Burner Podcast. I am your host, Mr. Arash, even though nobody will call me Mr. That's the silly name or tag name or nickname, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that's been attached to me for the past 3 years as I've been co-hosting another podcast called Crappy Awesome. If you're into the independent hip-hop scene, you should check that out. I don't know how you stumbled across this thing, maybe by random Googling or we know each other and you saw me blast it out on Facebook. But either way, welcome. This show has been a long time in the making. It started a few months ago. Actually, you know what? It's coming up on almost a year at this point, I guess, where I came up with the idea of interviewing interesting burners who are doing interesting things around the community and outside the community, people that are doing awesome things with their lives. And it was going to be a video project, but I started to do the interviews. And you know what? It was just a real pain in the ass to do all the editing, because after about 3 hours of editing a 10-minute video, it dawned on me in very, very clear vision that these people are a lot more interesting. It's just, it's too much story to be told in just a video. And I was driving up to LA one day and I was thinking, how can I condense this? How can I tell these interesting stories instead of doing these video essays like I'd originally planned? How can I really get into the guts of who these people are and really get into their stories? And, most often, typical hashtag artist problems is we overcomplicate things. And it dawned on me that, I have been co-hosting a podcast for the past 3 years. Why don't I make it a podcast? And it just kind of started coming together from there. I asked Meg King to help me produce it by booking the guests, because I like having the guests thrown at me without me having too much preparation, too much of an idea who they are. And it has been working out wonderfully. And just happened to be a week later, I was at one of the weekly gatherings here in San Diego there's a bar called the Red Wing Bar and Grill, which if you're ever in San Diego, if you're not already, you should absolutely come on Tuesday nights and make some new burner friends. Randomly, by the way, this is like the most fucked up allergy season here. I've never had such horrible allergies, and my voice feels even nasalier than it normally sounds to me. So my apologies for that. But anyway, it kind of started coming together, and I started kind of putting together the concept and the ideas of how I wanted to put together this podcast. And then the burn was coming up, and then after that, it was the regional burn, and then, all the things are happening, and kept getting thrown to the back burner, but we never forgot about it. We continued to kind of put it together. Alpi especially, bless her soul, she was really busting her ass writing those articles and putting out content on our blog, even though we didn't have a podcast yet. So she was definitely the kick in the ass that I needed to get this thing going. But, more than anything, I wanted to put together something that was very raw, that felt very casual. If ever you are missing being around your fellow burners, this could be an interesting conversation to just drop right into and say, hey, look, I know these people. These are my friends. I mean, we might not have actually met, but you know these people. We're already friends. And I know that sounds really poetic, but more than anything, it's because I'm just pretty fucking lazy and I don't feel like doing any more work than I absolutely have to. So this is sort of how this podcast started to come together. And I want this to be a place that cultivates ideas for our international community. For example, the interview that you're about to listen to with Brady. Brady is one of our community leaders. He was instrumental in bringing together what is now our regional burn, which back then was simply a decom. Oh man, my nose is so clogged. It runs about an hour. I have future interviews recorded that run longer. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I mean, ultimately, it's up to you guys. If you like to keep it an hour, we can put like a real 1 hour limiter on it. If you guys are demanding longer conversations, I'll be happy to let people talk more. You know, but either way, this is a place where, you know, if you might just want to listen to a conversation, or you are a leader within your community and you want to get some ideas about how different people are doing different things, and this could be a place where you get some of those ideas. And if you want to reach out to the people that we interview on this show, we're going to be giving out their contact info if they're okay with it. Or you could just, you know, tweet me or email me directly if you have questions, and we can get those answers to you. My Twitter handle is at Mr. Arash. That's MRARASH. And if you are discussing this show, just use the hashtag Burner Podcast to help spread the word. This episode was recorded prior to the 2014 burn. Just do keep that in mind. You will hear us referencing the upcoming burn. That's why. You'll also hear me referencing this very, poetic intro that I had originally planned. But as I was saying, originally this intro was going to be a lot more complicated, and I decided that it's too much work. And it just felt very dragged on, and I don't know. I felt like it lost the jazz. And maybe we'll revisit that. But in future episodes, you'll hear contributors giving essays, maybe some interesting information. There might be people reading excerpts from their blogs or their books, or there's all kinds of stuff that's going to be coming on the show in the future. It's not going to be only an interview show, but the interviews will be the primary sort of the heart of the show, if you will. Well, let us know what you think. Tweet me, email us. That's burnerpodcast@gmail.com. Or you could just go to the website. That's burnerpodcast.com. There is a contact page on there where you could fill in information and send your message that way. Let us know what you think. We want to hear from you. And so we're just going to go ahead and drop right into it. This is our interview with Brady Mahaney. I don't know why I decided to do that accent, but I did. So here we go.
I was looking at all the lights. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was the flowers, the bugs and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no name.
One more week of doing taxes in Bid?
Yeah, because I was going to make one last payment on my own personal taxes from 2012 and be done with making payments on that. And that was tied into closing out Sunburn.
Yeah.
Sunburn was able to pay their share of all the taxes, no problem. We gave the rest of the money to start up SD Cap. Mm-hmm. And so that went off and was able to do its own thing.
So did you actually start Sunburn?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about what sort of the structure behind that was and what the idea was.
Well, my first Burning Man experience was in Austin, Texas, back in 2003. And their event is called Flipside. And I first showed up and I was like, how does this work? Who's carrying the insurance for this? And who's talking to the sheriff? And
so prior to that, you had no experience with the Burning Man scene?
No, before that, I didn't. I had a few friends who were the kind of people who would go to Burning Man, and maybe one of them, I think at the time they finally did get involved with it, they were like, yeah, Brady, you should come check this out and see what's going on. The way my friend actually invited me was just come camping this weekend. And I was expecting it to be like 100 hippies around a campfire or something like that. But when I got there, it was 1,100 people doing all kinds of crazy Burning Man type stuff with giant art and flamethrowers and fire and all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I got curious about how it was all structured, and was talking to some of the people there, but mostly in Austin, I was only involved on the theme camp level of being part of the community. I really didn't go to town hall meetings or participate in their online discussions as a community. But was there for a full year and went to the flip side again in 2004 and met a girl from San Diego and ended up following her back out here after the event and got involved in the San Diego community. And I was expecting...
Was she aware that you were following her?
Yes.
Okay.
It was an open invitation.
Let's go back to Austin real quick, though. So your first instinct when you went to this completely insane off-the-wall event was to try to figure out how it's structured.
Right.
So where does that come from? Did you have an entrepreneurial background? Like, were you that kid that's always like taking your toys apart the minute you got them?
No, my younger brother was that kid. He was always taking his toys apart and putting them back together in different ways, making remote control pencil sharpeners and stuff like that. But no, I was just really surprised that you could get that many people together who were all like-minded in that same way of being differently minded.
Yeah.
You know, they were all... I finally felt like I had found my people.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, okay. I think what it was there was all kinds of crazy things happening, all kinds of people with long dreads and, you know, white people with dreads. It's like, what is that about? And then a white Camaro with T-tops just slowly passed by, pumping Motley Crue or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, my people are here too.
Yeah.
So this is okay.
What sort of professional field? What were you doing at that time in Austin?
I had just gotten out of the Navy, and I learned logistics and shipping and operations and that kind of thing. So I came out and I was doing warehouse management and bartending, but mostly warehouse management. Okay.
So you find your people. A year later, you follow a girl out to San Diego.
To San Diego. And I was expecting the crowd out here to be very similar, at least in structure and density to what I had seen in Austin. And it really wasn't. It was a really smaller group of people, maybe like 30, 35 core group members who would get together to do everything. Yeah. And they would do everything together practically. They would have workshops here and campouts here and a party at this guy's house here. But, I mean, their parties might turn out to be 400 or 500 people on a big campout. Yeah. And so it was a pretty small group at the time. And it's very disorganized. It wasn't structured in any way.
I would imagine that's San Diego's personality a little bit too.
Yeah, it's getting into being a regional contact and getting a chance to talk to the other regional contacts from around the country and the world.
What brought you into that position?
Again, that curiosity of what's going on with it. I got here to Austin, and I got here to San Diego, and it was almost a fight or flight kind of instinct because me and that girl had broken up. We lasted about 6 months, but I liked San Diego, and I wanted to stay out here. And it was like, well, I'm either going to fix it or I'm going to go home. Yeah. You know, so I'm either going to stop playing and I'm going to go do something different, or I'm going to make it into more of what I think it should be and what I want it to be.
So this is 2004?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2004, 2005.
So did you basically, did you ask around in order to kind of become that position, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I did. At the time, a guy named Jones was the regional contact, and he ended up moving to San Francisco after a period of time. And about the time that he was fixing to move to San Francisco, I had approached him and was like, again, how does this work? I'm a little curious as to how this is all structured and how this is all going to play out and everything. Because I felt like if I was going to be a leader of the local community, I was like, where am I leading this? You know, where are we going with this anyway? So I wanted to get the 30,000 foot point of view on the situation. And so I got involved in the regionals, and that was about the time that the regionals started hosting a regional summit in San Francisco, where we'd all get together in one room for a weekend and do workshops and do seminars and stuff. And it was like, we did a 2-hour lesson on listening one time, and it's amazing.
What was the biggest tip you took away from that?
The biggest tip I took away from that was probably a tool that you can use. Whenever someone is telling you something and they seem to kind of be representing both sides of the argument at the same time, or you take a moment to read back to them, okay, this is what I hear you saying to me. Yeah. And then you tell them what you think you heard them say. And they're like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. Like, okay, we'll start again. Use new words and try that again. Yeah. And you can help people to realize that they're not communicating their thoughts and feelings very well. And sometimes that can fix things inside of their their own understanding of what it is they're trying to
Yeah.
communicate or what they're being frustrated about. So
Yeah.
that was neat.
So, okay, so you're back here. You went to the first sort of regional gathering in San Francisco. So at this point, do you like become officially the regional contact? Like, how does that work?
It's a very long, drawn out process. It's not even like a grinding process. It's just like letting it marinate kind of process. I mean, the Burning Man organization, when I got involved with them, at least their mentality was that if you're interested in doing this kind of stuff, then just go do it.
Yeah, duocracy.
Duocracy. Just go do it, and if you're good at doing it, then we won't stop you from doing it. And if you're good at doing it, then eventually one day we'll make you official and anoint you or whatever.
Yeah.
But
how do they anoint you?
I think I had to sign a letter of understanding or something like that, saying that I was representing the community. And regionals get a ticket to the burn. You get one ticket for all the work you do and put into it.
Have you ever heard of anybody like get that position taken away from them?
I think I have, and I can't pinpoint the name to that now, but I have heard people sometimes will come to me and say, yeah, our regional isn't doing a very good job and we'd like to get him out or something. And I've explained to them, it's that duocracy thing. Okay, well then start doing something different. And it can be difficult when they have the reins of power of like the control of the email list. And every community is different. So these are particularly big problems for groups like in Oklahoma and Tennessee, where not everybody that's involved in the local crowd has actually been to Burning Man or anything close to it. So they don't really get a chance to immerse themselves in it and get an understanding of what's going on. Yeah. They're making up their own little tangent of it, which it can be good, can be bad. You know, Austin is a good example of how that's gone really, really well. And a lot of people who attend Flipside have maybe been to the burn once, and they may go every Flipside for 13 years or something like that. But
what's different about the Austin regional burn versus like our's?
Well, they have a 40-foot tall or 30-foot tall something that they burn down, but it's different every year. And it's they have an amazing structure for the way they structure their event. The Flipside event is, to them, their burn. It's their Burning Man event, and they are very happy and enthusiastic to put together this city. They call the city Pyropolis, and they're very happy to make stop signs and crosswalk signs for it and stuff like that, and bring these out to the event to make it feel more like a city and to make it feel more put together, you know. And it's wooded. It's 115 degrees and 80% humidity, you know, so it's hot and steamy. But there's also a creek that runs through it. And they've moved it around from a couple of different events, but a couple of different locations. But some of those locations had showers. But
I imagine with the humidity, that's a stronger need.
Yeah. You'll take a shower during the day just to cool off if you can, you know.
I mean, all your clothes are going to be soaked. 115, you said?
Yeah, it can get that hot.
Yeah.
So during the day, people lay low, but they're not really out doing a whole lot. And it rains usually, so that's always a little bit of a challenge too. It's in the springtime in Texas. So
interesting.
Yeah, it rained at our first event, and I was so close to getting a girl into my tent that I was inspired to make an art project that would run off of rain, so that if it would rain, the water would pool up on this thing and trickle down it and make bells go off and make lights flash and stuff. And I called it Murphy's Rain Chime because it'd be Murphy's Law that it would rain. We're trying to play with the idea of Murphy's Law to keep it from raining.
Yeah. You never got around to doing that?
No, we built it. I don't really think it really would have worked all that well, although it did flash. It did tinkle with bells and stuff. It never really rained during our event that year. It missed it a little bit on one night, which I consider that a success.
You were able to control the gods for that one night. So let's get back to San Diego. So it's 2004. You're, at this point, anointed.
Actually, it wasn't 2004 yet. Okay. I'd gotten here in 2004. And at that time, Mark Hinckley was throwing an event called Zara del Zura. And that was
Zara del Zura.
Yeah, Zara in the city of Del Zura.
Okay.
So they called it Zara del Zura. And Zara was a theme camp that he had made for Burning Man that was on the Esplanade for many years. And they were known for bringing out a flatbed truck full of sod and putting down fresh grass on the playa for a dance floor.
Wow.
And that was before they had regulations about, as long as you take all the moop with you, you can do whatever you want to. That was long before they had regulations about bringing plant matter out there. So anyway, he had a camp out there. It got hit by a particularly nasty dust devil one year and tore up all their toys. And so I don't think they came back after that. But they decided to throw their own arts festival here in San Diego. And Mark was the regional contact for a while doing that. Mm-hmm. And Zara was a lot of fun. It was a springtime festival. It was Mark's show, though. It was not a community event, really. It was supposed to be like a celebration of creative mythology, creating our own mythology. And Zara, the idea of Zara was it was an ancient rainforest temple. So it's like a temple buried in the rainforest. And that was the grass and the canopy of the structure all looked like rainforest leaves and stuff. Yeah. And then they had big stone blocks.
Beautiful.
Different places. It was really cool.
Yeah. So what year was this? I'm sorry?
I couldn't tell you when Zara started, but this was in 2004. Okay. I think it was 2003, 2004, 2005. He was doing the event Zara del Zura. Uh-huh. And
which was kind of like the closest thing to a regional that we had here in San Diego.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. It was sort of our regional, but it was not a community-driven event. Mm-hmm. Like I was mentioning, the people in Austin would work on bringing stop signs and caution signs and stuff out to the event. Yeah. At Zara, it was being thrown by just like 8 people from the Zara theme camp were throwing the whole event for like 800 people.
Wow.
And that was okay. It was Mark's show. It was Mark's vision. It was a lot of fun. It was a great event. We had a great time. It was up on top of this mountain in like a bowl. It was a beautiful location. Mm-hmm. I felt that the San Diego community needed an event that was more put on by the community, though.
Yeah.
To bring that cohesion to the community. And so there was a fall festival we were doing. It was called Fuego de los Mortes. And it was modeled after Zara del Zura and creative mythology of making up our own mythology. Yeah. And Dr. Random and Jones were the organizers, I think, and maybe Heather and Gecko as well. Some of the older guard.
Okay.
We're starting that event.
That mixture of names is awesome. But yeah.
That was back in 2003, 2004, I think they started this. And then in 2005, it was a week or two before the burn, and nobody was talking about doing this fall event that was going to be Halloween weekend yet. And I was like, we really ought to start planning this. It's like 6 weeks out. Who's got the lead on this year? And nobody answered and nobody stepped up. And so I was like, okay, well, I give you guys until you leave for the burn. If you haven't figured out who's going to do it this year, I'll take it on because I'm not going to go. Yeah. So I'll stay behind and I'll get our DCOM coming together. And so I took over Fuego de los Muertes in 2005, I believe. And we did it again in 2006 and 2007. And by that time, I was like, okay, we've got like 550 people coming camping for the weekend. I'm taking pyromaniacs camping in wildfire country. We really need some insurance here. And we really need a bank account to pay for the insurance and to hold a little bit of money aside in case we have to pay out a claim on the insurance or anything like that, So, and just that whole veil of corporate responsibility you need there. That's something I've learned from the Austin community as well. And so, the first 3 years that I organized Fuego de los Muertes, I was taking that $1 million insurance policy in my name personally.
God, that's insane.
Yeah, so we said, no more of this. If we're going to continue to do this event, we need an LLC.
Yeah.
So it was after...
And who's we? How many people are on your team, like your core team?
I think I started with 5.
Okay.
And I just reached out across the community and was like, you represent the Rangers. You seem to represent the spin art people, the the fire spinners and stuff. And you seem to represent the older guard and so I just pulled some different people together.
Politicking.
Yeah, basically. And they were all like, well, what do you want us to do? We didn't have a charter. We didn't have bylaws or anything. We were just, okay, on Thursday night, we're all going to get together around a table and talk about something. And they asked, what do you want us to do? And I told them mostly just tell me no. Just if I start to do anything crazy, just tell me no. And we just try to keep this all as conservative as possible, let it grow slowly and organically, and let it get a good foot underneath it before we try to do anything outrageous with it. And I think we did a good job of growing it that way, because now that it's bigger and it's funded, it has some money to play with and do different things. We can do things like help donate money to Figment to get it going, and we can do art grants. We've done $60,000 in the art grants last year, I think, for Utopia, and I think we're going to do 70,000 this year or something like that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I am very proud of that. All the long-term goals that I had set out for Sunburn were actually accomplished.
What rank were you when you were discharged from the Navy?
I was a E4, aviation storekeeper, 3rd class.
Okay.
So,
I mean, because I'm trying to get an understanding sort of where your approach to leadership comes from. Because you're very like, we met at the Tuesday night meetups at Red Wing, and you're kind of like, for lack of a better description, very like unassuming guy. You walk into a room, you're usually sort of in the corner, you're quiet, you're watching TV, drinking, whatever. And, you're not very like loud and in your face. And yet here you are, you don't even have a playa name. I mean, it's funny. Like everything about you, if somebody looks at you from the outside, they wouldn't think burner. And then here you are in having been in a leadership position in this community pretty much since the minute you walked into it.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand sort of where that came from.
I don't know. When I played Little League Baseball, I was the catcher.
Yeah.
And my dad told me, well, as the catcher, you're the only player who can see all the rest of the team. And if you see somebody who's too far right or too far left, if left field's playing too far left, call them back over to the right a little bit. You remember where that batter hit last time and try to move the guys in that direction if you have to or whatever. So I don't know. I've just always kind of been that. If I see something that I think should be different, I'm always one of the people who goes through, and when I walk through the laundromat, I'm closing all the dryer doors as I walk down the aisle. Yeah. If I see trash on the ground, I'm picking it up and putting it in the trash can.
Has it been your general experience that when it comes to we're calling it leadership, but I mean it's just really about doing. You just kind of start doing, and people tend to start following.
Yes. Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I count on that to happen. Hopefully I can get a few people to come with me, because I've noticed that, I don't know, it seems to me like a lot of people are suspicious of me for some reasons or another.
Currently.
And, well, when I first hit the Burning Man community here in San Diego, I felt like it kind of had me hogtied, because the whole community would look at me and be like, who is this guy who just came from out of nowhere and is like now putting together a legal company in my name to support my Burning Man community and all this stuff? And who is this guy?
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame him.
Yeah. So I don't blame him either, but it made me feel like, okay, I can't lead from the front. I can't be the guy out front with the flag, because I mean, unless I have the flag, I can't be the guy in front of the guy with the flag, You
don't have a big furry jacket.
I do now.
You do now. Good.
Yeah. But yeah, I've always, especially here in San Diego, I felt like I had to prove myself by not doing anything. I'm doing anything drastic or aggressive. And I'm not necessarily conservative politically, but I handled things very conservatively, I guess, when it came to running the Burning Man crowd, the community's financials and legal stuff.
What do you think, elaborate on that, what you mean by conservative handling?
Well, trying to give out more. So many people just run these kind of things off the bridge, off the cliff. They'll, we're going to throw an event, and we're going to take it to the desert, and we're going to have the biggest sound system in the world, and we're going to do all this stuff. And, they don't plan for plan B and C. They don't have contingencies in mind. They don't think about the future. They just think, we're going to make this awesome thing go boom. Yeah. And it usually goes boom. And sometimes it's really not that awesome. Yeah. But I've always looked at it as like, with an eye for tomorrow, how is this going to affect what's coming down the road the next time? And that's logistics work too, and planning. I always try to plan 2 trips, because I know you're going to forget something the first time. So if you have a second truck coming behind you, then, hey, call back to that one and tell them to bring the mop or whatever,
Yeah. Has it been your experience that there are other regionals that aren't thinking of those kind of things? With the exception of Austin, of course, because it sounds like they were amazing.
Yeah. All the regionals think about things differently. A good example of that is at one of the regional summits in San Francisco, they had San Diego and Seattle put on a workshop together, not so much a workshop, but a presentation about how to run an election for your community's leadership. And San Diego had just elected some new board members to the LLC board, and Seattle had been doing this for a while, and going through the whole process of like, okay, so who can vote? You know, well, we're radically inclusive, so everybody should get to vote. Well, does the burners who live in New York, who know this guy that just moved out here from New York, do they all get to vote? Because that's kind of crazy. And it's like, well, okay, so Seattle came up with the idea of, well, anybody who bothers to sign up on the website, you know, you have to at least have a little barrier of entry of, are you interested enough to sign up onto our community's message board? Maybe you used to live in Seattle and you moved to someplace else and you still want to keep track of what's going on there. Sure, you can vote. Yeah, you have a vested interest in the community happening there. But, you know, just ballot stuffing from your friends from Florida who or whatever, you know, is discouraged.
Yeah.
So basically it came down to, when I was in the Navy, I was stationed in Seattle. And I was talking to the guys and I said, look, I understand. Seattle, your crowd is all people who work for Google and Microsoft. You're all good with computers and networking and instant messaging back and forth. And it's rainy and it's cold and you're inside with a cup of coffee. And you're getting stuff done on the internet. No problem with your networking and your social structure there. San Diego, it's sunny. It's beautiful. It's always consistently same weather. So we have no rush. We have a very, if not today, then tomorrow kind of attitude. And you can't get your email on your surfboard, or you really don't check it that much when you're out biking or hiking or whatever. So we have a great disparity in the ways that our communities work. And you could probably pick any two communities and it'd be the same way. So that's one of the nice things about having the regional communities, is that it kind of tailors to each local flavor. But
As it should.
As it should.
It's entirely different cultures.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back here. So the first year that we had like our official decompression in San Diego, was it called Utopia the first year?
No.
What was it called? Just
I think we were still calling it Fuego de los Muertes at the time.
Okay. How did that go?
It went well. At the time we were leasing private property or renting private property from landowners out in places like Boulevard and Jacumba, out in the east part of the county, not even the far east part of the county, just further east than downtown. And there was always one neighbor who would already be in a fight with the landowner from before we ever showed up. And then we would just become a football in their fight, going back and forth with the sheriff getting involved. And it's, you know, they're driving on my road, their music's too loud, you know, they're giving drugs to the coyotes, you know, whatever, just all kinds of crazy things.
Okay. Was that real?
Yeah, we actually had a complaint that
somebody was giving drugs to
We had
coyotes?
left so many needles and syringes and drugs and stuff at the property after the event that all the rabbits and coyotes were just laying around the ground twitching and overdosing.
Wow.
And that's complete bull.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would imagine.
So and they signed the letter as being addressed from one of the local tribes, but they spelled the name of the tribe wrong.
Interesting.
So it definitely was not from the tribe. And
I'm dying to know where they even came up with that visual. I mean, if you're going to lie about something, you're pretty much admitting that.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, the people who live out there aren't real predictable.
Yeah.
You know, they're, I don't want to say kooks necessarily, but there's some kooky people who live out there then.
Simply because you have kooky mannerisms, it doesn't necessarily make you a full-on kook.
No. I'm sure
But they're pretty
lots of
kooky.
very nice people out there too, but there's a lot of people out there who just live out there because they can't or don't want to get along with other people any other way. So they, you know, kind of isolate themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
peace to them.
Peace to them. Peace to them, along with the high coyotes and the bunnies. So, so today, of course, it's called Utopia, and it's, you know, amazing. I mean, I've had a lot of different burners that I've talked to from different regions that it's very common for me to immediately hear. The statement is something along the lines of San Diego has such a wonderful burner community. And they go off on that. I mean, I'm certain that Utopia has in no small part contributed to the cultivation of that culture. So a couple of degrees removed, they're kind of talking about what you've done. So have you, like, on this hero's journey, was there a year where, you know, it all kind of fell apart and it was really difficult to push it through? Or has it always gone smooth?
Several times. No, there've been. You predict. Okay, we've got everything in line here, and today is the day. You know, I can put it on the calendar. This is the day everything's going to fly apart. Yeah, it's just like 2 days out from the
Is it
event.
Thursdays? I hope it's not Thursdays.
No, it's gonna like 2 days out before the event, so which would make it Tuesday. Yeah, it's usually Tuesday before the event or so that my phone's blowing up and being like, "Hey, we don't have any cash to go get the stuff we need to go do the thing to go." Then the guy's got, and the truck's not showing up, and it's, just everything flies apart there that last couple of days before the event starts.
The only inevitability of event planning.
I'm sorry?
It's the only inevitability of event planning.
Right.
A bunch of things will go wrong.
You can set your watch by it.
Yeah.
So, there's been lots of things. There was one time, I think it was 2007. Pretty sure it was 2007. We were doing it out in Borrego Springs, I believe. And the sheriff, our early team went out the weekend before to put a few pieces of infrastructure in place. And the sheriff just pulled up on the property while they were there unloading shade structures and stuff and says, "Hope your boys ain't planning on doing a party this weekend or next weekend or something like that." And it went on downhill from there. And it was a new location for us with a new sheriff we were having to deal with. Yeah. And
was it just like a personal beef with him? He's just like, "I'm going to stop this thing."
I guess, I don't know, something like that. Again, I hadn't dealt with that sheriff very much before. And I spent most of the time dealing with the clerks downtown trying to get the permits approved at the last minute, which they would not approve. So we could not do any fire and we could not have any sound at the very last minute.
Oh, wow.
And, like I said, everything just flies apart there at the last minute. We still had a great time. It was probably the craziest, dustiest, dirtiest decom ever. But, we got the crowd together. And adversity just makes it even better when the crowd's together like that. Because then they have something, we'll overcome this, and they grow with it. And
what did they do different that year without the music and the fire?
We did still manage to have some music. We had a live band come out and play for a while. And we did have some music. We just couldn't have it real loud because we didn't have a sound permit. So they didn't mind us as long as we kept it really quiet.
What year was this?
So I think it was 2007. It was a guy named Hasham hosted it out in Borrego Springs. Yeah. And it was not really sand. It was more like topsoil that was blowing around. Instead of a dust storm, you had a topsoil storm. So
was that the last year that you guys had it there?
Yeah, that was the one and only year we did it there. It was just a very windy location. It was kind of a wide open area in a valley between two big mountains, and just didn't really work out very well for us. There was also an airport right adjacent to us. Yeah. So that made it really in our line of sight for everything. And we found a better location the next year, so we moved on to the Telemagica grounds in Jacumba. And that place was really nice. They were very welcoming landowners to us there. And
I have no idea where that is. Where is that in relation to San Diego?
It's about 2 hours out, just past the Golden Acorn Casino.
East, so towards Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's an old train junction there or something like that. They got a couple of old derelict locomotives on the property there. So, it was a lot of fun. We did it there for 2 years. And then we got into the current location for Utopia now.
The La Jolla Indian Grounds.
Yeah, La Jolla Indian.
Which is like an hour and a half northeast of central San Diego?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you guys move from the previous location?
Another neighbor.
Yeah.
Pretty much the exact same situation we had before, but another neighbor. Yeah.
Is it a safe assumption that the current location has been the most welcoming?
Yeah, we haven't had any problems with the neighbors necessarily at La Jolla Indian Reservation. There are some troublemakers within the tribe who are troublemakers for the tribe. These are people who the tribe's like trying to keep trying to keep them under control, and then we come in and there's no bridge or barrier that's going to keep them out of making their way across the land into the event. They know it like the back of their hand, so it's their place.
So troublemaker meaning what? What are they doing?
It was very funny actually. There's a guy who snuck into the event and was trying to evoke a fight. He would go up to dance floors and see a couple dancing together and move it on the girl and start dancing on the girl and start pawing at her and grabbing her.
Wow.
Actually trying to get the boyfriend or the other male there to fight him.
Okay.
And was persistent about it until we removed him. And then he would find his way back in again and again and again and again. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't experience any of it. Was there anything that happened this past year? Was it 13?
I don't know. For the past 2 years, I've only been able to go to Utopia for about 16 or 18 hours at a stretch. I've been going on Saturday nights and leaving midday Sundays usually because I've been opening my own business about 4 years ago, and that's taken away my ability to get away for long weekends. This will be the first Utopia that I'm going to in 2014 that I hope to be there for 4 days.
That's exciting.
It's a long time. Yeah, I've got a lot of plans.
Yeah. Did you have to pass the reins on to somebody else, or how does it work as far as your position was as far as regional contact?
I asked for some help, first of all. When I first came on as regional contact, the Burning Man organization had just made the decision that having one regional contact per region just isn't enough.
Yeah.
They turn over and it takes them too long to get somebody else into it. So if they appoint 3, maybe they can get one to stick around for a while.
And there's no checks and balances either. And
Right.
Somebody's holding all the email keys and everything.
Yeah, and that was a really weird thing for me, too, was that they did appoint 3. They appointed me and Greg Young and Captain Storm as being regionals all at the same time. So we were 3 co-leads. We were like, hey, that's great. We're fine. I was kind of the more active person in planning the Fuego de los Muertes event at the time. And Greg and Storm were doing other aspects of the regional responsibilities. Eventually, the 2 of them ended up stepping down from being regional. And Burning Man came back in and appointed, I think, another 3 more, I want to say. There was, and one of them was active duty military at the time, who ended up discharging and moving out of state, so he left. And
how did they decide when they stepped in?
The people who expressed interest in doing it, and then they get interviewed on the telephone. And I think if you can get to the Burning Man, which is kind of a big deal to get the position, you get an on-playa interview.
Interesting.
And so I mean, if you're at Burning Man and you're there, then Stephen Raspa will take a moment to talk to you out there, and I'm sure that he gets a lot of information just on the way that you show up for that interview.
Absolutely.
So
because there is that. This is funny because we were planning the Souk project so San Diego's contribution, for listeners who aren't familiar, this year at the Burn, it's going to be a Middle Eastern Mediterranean bazaar that is being built around the Man. And each of the regionals is getting a storefront in the bazaar. So ours is the San Diego, when I say ours, I mean San Diego, it's the Abite Travel Agency, which is Latin for go away. And it's fascinating because we were in our last meeting and I was talking to, so I think I'm in charge of figuring out scheduling. I mean, I'm saying that with a question mark at the end of my sentence because, fuck, who knows how this is supposed to work out because it's the playa. And I was trying to figure out how we'd go about, should we sort of like have certain people check to make sure that people are kind of showing up for their shifts so we can make sure that, the store is not empty like an entire day. And the response that I got from everybody was, you can't tell people how to burn. Like if they, you tell them like, this is the schedule. And then if they show up or if they don't, I'm like, well, fuck. Like, how are we gonna, how is that going to work out? But I guess it's kind of like what you're describing is that, how they show up for that interview does say a lot about sort of like how are you able to push past all the madness that's going on and still maintain some sort of a professional facade? And professional is, I'm going to use quotes around
that. Because I think if you dressed up as a bunny, you'd probably get better points with Steven, really, anyway. Yeah. So.
But still show up.
Yeah, but show up, for sure.
Yeah.
And try to be sober and, be able to speak. And,
some level of articulate, have some sort of thought process going.
Yeah. I mean, if your campmates show up on time and pour you out of a wheelbarrow in front of them, I don't think you're going to pass the interview very well. But yeah, I mean, I think it was mostly about, again, showing up, being there, showing your level of interest. Because a big part of it is actually being present on the discussion list. But a lot of this was before Facebook. Yeah. It really took off. And so
forums.
Yahoo groups and things like that. And wikis. And I miss all that stuff. I really think Facebook is not the best thing in the world for all this. But
why is that?
It's just too public, and I feel like there's some things that I would like to be able to express without having my professional name attached to it. I mean, even artists who are out there sometimes use a artist name or whatever, and then Banksy probably has a regular Facebook account that he can keep track of his family and friends on. But they don't know it's Banksy.
Yeah, yeah. So. They, that's that. What you're describing, that's, it's kind of like the eternal discussion, because the flip side of that, of course, is trolls. Assholes that just get online and just, go like the guy that breaks in and tries to grope on women and pick fights. Like basically that guy can be on Facebook and they can just walk around leaving comments on everybody's pages and then, try to elicit fights. And then sort of that's what the argument is, that you have to kind of know who you are.
Right. And that's why I like those smaller forum groups and things like that, to where, I suppose if you went off and you Google search like San Diego burners, you would find it, but it's not the same as going on Facebook and searching like burners and then finding all the list of burners communities and just being able to click on all their pages and get in like that. If it was like more like the old school forums and things that they used to have,
it was a little more discriminating.
A little bit. It was a little more self-selecting too, to where it was kind of a chore to get into it.
Yeah.
And you probably had to get approved by a moderator someplace, which I'm sure you can do all that with Facebook too, but I don't know. It's just all too connected, too public, and too easy for the CIA. They're doing their job for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Podcasts don't help. Yeah.
Right.
Spilling the beans on how it all works. No, I think the funny thing about situations like this is that the more, and this is why this kind of stuff fascinates me, because the more you learn about what goes into putting like an event together, the more transparent it is, the more boring it all seems. Like it's really not as exciting as people think it is. A lot of it really is sitting around, filling out paperwork and meetings, and when you're not aware of what it is, it seems so mysterious.
Yeah.
But in reality,
I've totally lost the perspective of, it just being fun and going out and hanging out with friends and being amazed by everything. It's more like, okay, nobody's dying. There's no ambulances wailing. Everything's going okay right now. Just be prepared and wait for the next thing to go wrong. And that's kind of how I do my events. It's just like, okay, is that going okay? Is that going okay? All right. So, yeah, I would like to get to the point where I can get back to just going out and actually just enjoying the event.
When can that happen?
Well, you touched on something earlier about having too many power and having the passcodes for all the passwords or whatever. That was another problem that I had early on, was that I was wearing too many hats. I was the LLC. I was the head of the LLC. I was also the event lead. So I was controlling the event. I was controlling the finances of the community. I was also the email list owner.
Yeah.
So I was controlling the way the community communicated. I was in charge of it at least. And it was just all concentrated onto one person. And again, that I felt like that kind of had me hogtied on my own creativity. I couldn't do anything really, really radical to express myself, because I needed to be something that was more steady and that people could look to and be like, okay, this is going to happen next week. I will go ahead and spend my money for my tickets a month in advance because I'm sure that event really is going to happen.
Yeah.
So now I'm not wearing any of those hats anymore. I am still a regional and I am still a moderator for the Facebook page. But other than that, I'm not the event lead and I'm not on the board anymore. I am starting to get a little more involved in collab and what they're doing now. But
you're still worried when you're out of the events. You still haven't completely let go psychologically.
It's still my baby to some extent, so I am.
Like, can there ever be a future when you're able to just go and not?
I started rangering for a little while when I was working with the local rangers, the Pacific Southwest Rangers.
Yeah. Whenever
they were hosting, they were rangering at an event called Elysium, and I would participate with them as a ranger, and that was a lot of fun. But I came to realize I'm always rangering. Like I was talking about earlier about picking up the litter at the movie theater the night, waiting in line, and there's like 100 people in line to get into the movie, and they're all like one by one slowly walking past this candy bar wrapper that's on the ground right there next to the trash can, and not a single one of them picked it up until it was my turn to get up there in line, and I picked it up and put it in the trash can. And I don't know. I'm always rangering, so I think I'll always be concerned and on the lookout for the people around me and things like that.
I mean, it seems to me like you kind of shot yourself in the foot. Like you're never going to be able to completely let go.
No. But I don't think I could have before either. It's not like I'm just that way. I don't think I shot myself in the foot.
Yeah. No, of course I'm joking. No, it's a blessing that you were able to do the things you did. And I want you to tell me about in your years of time, like how have you seen the community change in broad strokes, of course?
Sure. It's changed a lot. It's grown. It's become like when I first hit town, 2004 or so. Like I said, it was a very tight group of maybe 15 to 25 people, with a larger expanded group of maybe about 45 to 50 people that would get together, and they would do different kind of workshop nights. They would make masks out of pineapple or coconut husks or something, or they would
For any particular purpose?
have a mask making workshop.
Okay.
Let's everybody get to go there at John's house. We're gonna have a mask making workshop.
Yeah.
I got all these palm fronds or whatever, and we're gonna got some paint, and we're gonna be creative and hang out together.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing, and things like that. And another guy had I think he was a jeweler, and so he had a small workshop where people would come in and tinker with making jewelry and stuff. And another girl was really into making LED clothing, and so she would let people come in and put LED lights into their clothes and their playa coats and stuff. So that's what the community was doing when I first hit town, and I thought that was great. They were, it's a small group, and I thought that.
What was the age range, would you say?
I would say they were probably all 30 to 50 for the most part, maybe 55, 60.
Do you think the group's gotten younger, like a lot of the core?
I don't necessarily think the majority of them are younger. I mean, it's grown by so many. We've got like 3,000 people on a discussion list now in the Facebook group. And I know that there's a lot more people in San Diego who go to Burning Man and probably know about the community, but just don't want to be on a conversation list.
See, I think it's the opposite. I think when I discovered the community, I discovered immediately that most people that I knew that have been to Burning Man several years had no idea that this community existed.
Really?
And it's mind-blowing that either they didn't know or they didn't understand how extensive it is.
Right.
Because I'll tell them about events. For me, I'm completely spoiled by the community. I pretty much, if I can just basically be at a burner party every weekend, like I'm fine. That can be my social outing.
Yeah.
You get totally spoiled because pretty much everybody you talk to is intelligent and funny and weird, and you can talk about something other than just the weather. But if you do talk about the weather, it's some fucking really fascinating part of the weather that you didn't expect to learn.
Right.
So it's funny, like what I discovered immediately as someone who's new to the community is that I didn't know it existed. And a lot of the people that I know that go regularly, I think they couldn't fathom that it was this vibrant and this alive. I think they just thought it was like a group of hippies that get together from time to time. But once you kind of get into it, it's very tight knit. And people know each other, and immediately it gets to the point where every event you walk into, you immediately know half the group. No matter how big the group is. That's the weirdest part.
Yeah.
Like a huge party and you know half the group.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I've been found that for a period of years there, I found that I knew like 80% of the people in the room at any party I was going to. And that's great. That's great community.
So yeah, we were saying the community has grown quite a bit.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point that you think that you're saying that a lot of people who are living in the San Diego area, who go to Burning Man regularly even, may not be aware that there's a community that is so vibrant and active here in San Diego. I can understand that happening, but we really, really have put a great effort into trying to make awareness about it.
Yeah.
We've thrown film festivals for 3 years in a row where we were showing a bunch of films we did one at Museum of Photographic Art. Mm-hmm. We did one at the Mission Valley, one of the theaters there. Mm-hmm. And on that one, we had 4 screens at a multiplex going all night long.
Yeah.
And then we've also done one at a Victory Theater, a small community theater in the Barrio Logan area. And these things have been published in the Reader. I mean, that was one event we were certainly trying to make a lot of noise about. Just, this is the opportunity for you to bring all those people you keep telling about Burning Man. They just don't understand what it's about. Your mom, your uncle, your dad, whatever. Bring them out to the theater and give them a little taste of what it's like. So we have tried. We've done a lot of outreach. Figment is our next big thing in that direction.
Tell me about Figment, because you mentioned it earlier. Mm-hmm. this is your next baby.
Right.
And it takes place at Chicano Park. Is that correct?
Yes, we've done it in Chicano Park twice now, and we're looking at Chicano Park for our 2015 event as well.
What's the concept of Figment?
Well, like, I'm a San Diego regional contact for Burning Man. I'm from the regional contact for Burning Man for San Diego. And my counterpart in New York City is a guy named Dave, and he had the opportunity to use a new piece of park land that had just gotten turned over to the city. It was an island that was in the Hudson River or the East River, and it was a former military base and Coast Guard base and just a lot of green zone. And it was handed over with the city with the contingency that they could not put condos on it. Mm-hmm. And they had to do something different with it. And so Dave got him and I guess mostly his Burning Man crew together from New York. And they created a one-day arts festival called Figment.
Yeah.
The name came from an Andy Warhol quote. Apparently someone had asked Andy Warhol what he wanted on his tombstone. And he said nothing. Just blank. He said, oh, no, wait. Figment. And so that's where the name Figment came from.
Any idea what Andy Warhol meant by that? Like figment of imagination?
Right.
It really exists.
A muse.
Yeah.
You know, a bit of inspiration that you're not sure was really ever anything in the first place.
Fucking weirdo artist.
Yeah.
Like it's fascinating what Warhol just does. Just completely tangent. As a younger person in art school, I remember could not wrap my brain around why this is so important to learn about Andy Warhol. Now it pretty much seems like every prediction he made about where everything was going with his art came true.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Well, being from New York, he was a big, mover and shaker in the art scene there in New York and a big influence on that. So when the New York Burners got together to do this, they had their first Figment and they were expecting about 500 to 1,000 people show up, and they had something like 5,000 people show up for their first day. You had to take a ferry to get there, and the ferries were over capacity and had to shut down at some point in time.
So what's the concept of the event? What were people going to see?
It's interactive art, sort of like you have at Burning Man. So there are some things you can climb on. There's things you can play with. One of the great pieces from New York was a bunch of costumes for superheroes. And then they had 2 kiddie pools that were filled full of water and stuffed animals, to where the stuffed animals would get all wet and soggy. Yeah. And I guess you stood in the kiddie pools while dressed as superheroes throwing stuffed animals at each other.
Of course.
And that was like one of the hits of the whole event. But
none of that is weird at all.
No.
Yeah.
But
it was.
You got to think about it this way, though. This is New York City we're talking about here. They had 5,000 people show up on the first day of Figment. They have about that many people show up for their Santa cons.
Yeah.
Their Santa bar crawls turn out those kind of numbers. So there's just a lot of people there who are already sort of in this mindset to do something like that. And
they like to do shit. Like,
yeah.
So what's the mission statement of Figment, though? I mean, other than just putting together a bunch of art and inviting people, like, what are you trying to achieve?
Our little slogan is to build community through art, which is a nice little tie-in with Chicano Park and their community right now, because they really have built and rescued and saved their community through the artwork that they have done there in Chicano Park.
Absolutely.
And it's a long, interesting history about their background and their heritage being displayed on these big giant concrete pillars that came in and tore up their neighborhood.
Yeah. The pillars that hold up the Coronado Bridge that connects the down. So for the listeners, Barrio Logan is a community just south of downtown San Diego, predominantly Hispanic, and a lot of longshoremen work in those areas. And there's a rich history. You should definitely look up the history of Chicano Park. And this park is underneath the Coronado Bridge, which is this massive concrete monstrosity if you live in the neighborhood. And yet these pillars have been turned into this really incredible art. I mean, Chicano Park was such a major part. I mean, that was pretty much the explosion of the Chicano movement was in Chicano Park.
Yeah, they were really... They got the shitty end of the stick from the city of San Diego time and time again. Their neighborhood got cut in half when the 5 freeway came through, and they just eminent domain took a bunch of houses from a bunch of people in the community, because that was all just blocks and blocks of residential. Yeah. And they put the 5 right to the middle of it. And then they came back and they built the Coronado Bridge and the interchange for that going the other way. So they just bisected it again.
Yeah.
And there's still a great deal of resentment in that community about the way they have been treated about that kind of thing. And just most recently, their little community neighborhood development group came up with a plan, their neighborhood plan, which every neighborhood group in San Diego is supposed to come up with your own neighborhood plan that you work out for the city to work with the city. And somebody from outside of the Chicano Park community decided that should go to a full county-wide vote. You know, if Bankers Hill or any of these other communities wanted to change their community plan and do something different in their community plan, it doesn't go to a county-wide vote.
Yeah.
But the political interest and the commercial interest around Barrio Logan got enough signatures to put it on the ballot.
What did they want to change?
They wanted to create a buffer zone between the industry and the residential.
Yeah,
because a lot of the kids have asthma from all the hazardous materials and stuff that are coming off.
Because there's shipyards all right there.
There's shipyards and junkyards and recycling yards and all kinds of industrial waste.
Yeah.
And it's the armpit of San Diego, really. I mean, we get a lot of jobs there. We get a lot of community there. But, you know, the city politicians came back. The former mayor and the current mayor both lobbied against the Prop B and Prop C to try to defeat it. And also they were being backed by the commercial industries in the San
Meaning
Diego
the
area.
former mayor and the current mayor were in favor of not having a buffer zone.
Not having a buffer zone, not influencing anything, not negatively influencing the commercial industries, the maritime industries that are there, the shipyards and stuff like that. And a lot of their argument was that, the military is great stewards. They do a wonderful job of the environment protection and stuff like that. And they don't. I mean, that's just terrible. I was in the Navy in the hazardous materials unit, and I can tell you that they just budget for their EPA fines.
Yeah.
You know, they're not great stewards of the environment. They do what they want to, and they just pay off the fines.
Yeah.
And
I know that their side of the argument, they were saying that I don't know enough about it. I just know this one part, that they did some testing and studies, and they found that the pollution that's coming in is actually coming in more from the freeway usage and not from the shipyards and the boats coming into the bay.
Sure. Yeah, I wonder who paid for that research. Yeah, they had a lot of different arguments that were ridiculous. But, you know, anytime you put it to a countywide vote and go, hey, we're going to be taking jobs away from this, or this is going to affect the way the jobs work.
Yeah.
You know, the county is going to be like, oh, no, we need our jobs. We need our tax-based income and all that stuff. So, no, Chicano Park, your kids are just going to have to grow up with asthma.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's any other community trying to take something to their city plan like that would not have to go to a countywide vote. It was just a real tragedy.
So what happens now?
So
I mean, it's passed. Like, are they planning?
I'm sure they're going to continue to fight with it.
Yeah.
The Prop B and Prop C measures that were on the ballot were a compromise in the first place. That wasn't the agreement that they wanted. That Chicano Park wanted. It was a compromise in the first place. But the fact that they lost it, I don't know where they're going to go from now. I do know that I was at their last steering committee meeting, and that they had written a letter back to some clean Coast Clean or Clean Coast or something like that.
The Coastal Commission?
No, it's not the commission, but it's an organization who wanted to bring out some politicians and some media to show them going around picking up trash and litter and stuff, and they wanted to start in Chicano Park.
Yeah.
And they're like, you want to clean up our environment after you just told us that you want all our kids to die from asthma.
Yeah.
Because you don't want us to try to clean up our environment. So,
wow. So where does Figment fit into this?
So Figment is just an event on their yearly calendar at Chicano Park, and it's going to be interesting to see how things play out, because I really don't think that the Figment community that we're getting together here is the kind of thing that's going to show up for political action or for citizen action or whatever, along with the people of Chicano Park. So we want to work with them, we want to support them, but I'm just afraid we're going to let them down when it comes down to time to stand up for them for whatever is right.
Yeah.
I can get people to show up for a fun day in the park, but I don't know if I can get them to show up for a rally or something,
But that's, that is where it starts, though. I mean, even the mission that you were saying earlier about community through art, there was a really fascinating sociology article that I read years ago. God, I wish I could find it. It's one of the most interesting things I'd ever read. But it really was finding that communities and towns that have a stronger connection to their art scene and their artists, what it does is it cultivates conversation, because the artists come in and they might look at a certain situation from a certain angle or do a photo essay of a certain place, and that cultivates conversation. So what they found is that communities that generally have a stronger connection to their art scene have a stronger understanding of their local politics, and in turn, the national politics. They have a better understanding of what's going on a national level. So I would say that that's probably the way that having arts events there is contributing.
Well, hopefully. I know it seems like a lot of people in the Burning Man community are just so turned off to
Politics
and current world affairs and stuff, because it's just all so bleak and hopeless.
Yeah.
And, if you want to try to stay happy, it's best just to turn it off and not listen anymore, because there's really nothing you can do about it. And some of the best advice I'd gotten about politics came from another guy who, I think he was more, not so much a burner. He was at Burning Man, but it was his first year there. And he was telling me that, the thing you have to stop doing with the politics is giving your energy to it.
Yeah.
Because if you're giving your energy and your hate and you're all wrapped up about, God, these people are just screwing everything up and making this bad, then it's not doing you any good. It's just burning you up, and you're just adding to the conversation. In a bad way. And it's just giving them energy and, giving them more attention, hits, clicks, whatever they want to, however they want to measure it. But your energy could be better spent in other directions.
No, you're absolutely right. It's, like right now there's all this talk about, impeaching President Obama. And my brother was saying that at his house, they received like several fundraising newsletters from the Democratic Party saying, are you going to let them impeach Obama? Then you should donate to the Democratic Party. So like they're actually making money off of it. Like they're absolutely using that to galvanize some of their core base to make money. The same thing as the abortion issue. Yeah. That's definitely a huge thing that both sides are making money off of. Like they are able to cultivate a culture of energy and influence and involvement by giving the sides something to fight about.
Right.
And abortion has been the gift that keeps on giving, especially to the conservative side, but I think to the liberals as well. And I think now you see the President Obama impeachment thing. Like any of the energy you give to it, they're still like, yay, no matter which side you are. Yeah. They're always trying to get the foot soldiers involved somehow.
Yeah, and so I really do agree with, not giving your energy into those kind of conversations, and just I don't think that whole, we're getting way off into politics now, but I don't think that whole Republican-Democrat thing is, I'm looking for a completely different solution to the problem than that. The Occupy thing interests me, but it needs leadership and direction and all that stuff. I think the human race
they don't want to do.
as a whole needs direction and leadership.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to try to lead Occupy right now. I don't know. It's funny though, going through life, it's like, well, if you don't do it, who's going to?
Yeah.
So
just because you decide you don't want to play the game, it doesn't mean the game stops being played.
Yeah.
And here's the thing though, it's funny that you bring that up, because that was my motivation for starting this podcast. And I think I actually touch on it on the intro that I believe is getting tagged onto this episode, which is there is a discussion about consciousness happening and what our role and place is in society. And I think that you're kind of seeing that a newer generation of people are having more and more influence on the direction that our society, I don't want to say our country, but our society is going to go in by being in positions of influence. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to join in the political fight, but you have like the gentleman who owns Zappos, who's a major burner. You have the guys that run Google who are at the burn every year, and they are taking, and even yourself, like that's what it leads to is you're a small business owner, and you've said several times that you are influenced by Burning Man. You run your store as if it's a theme camp on the playa, and so I think that's where influence could come in. By individuals such as yourself taking leadership in the community and saying, you know what, we're not going to play that game. We're going to start our own game, though. Like, you guys are playing football. We're going to play foosball.
Yeah.
Little by little, more and more people are going to want to play foosball.
Yeah,
You know, that's
agree
the
with
direction
you.
it goes.
And yeah, slow growth and all that good stuff, and it'll get there eventually. Yeah, I've got a few different business ideas I want to do, and one way or another, they were all kind of influenced by Burning Man to some aspect. But
Like, can you tell me about that? Like, what do you mean by your thought process about your business being like a theme camp on the playa?
well, people come into my store, and my store is a mailbox rental, pack and ship store that has some copiers and some rental computers and some office supplies. And I haven't really managed to manifest this vision of it just yet, but I like to think of my store as like a fire plug for the internet, on the corner of the street. It's like you can come over, you can get online, you can return your Zappos boxes, you can, print that document that somebody sent to your smartphone. It's a way to turn all that stuff into something physical you can deal with, or to put something physical back into it.
Yeah.
So it is that sort of endpoint. And then a little bit of that old hardware store where people used to go down to the hardware store and hang out and talk about that cabinetry project they're working on, and try to get some tips and tricks from the other guys at the store. So a little bit of that too. And then I had one customer come in who had never had an email account before, and I sat them down at the rental computer and set them up with an email account. And like the first 5 times they ever checked their email was only when they came to my store. But eventually they began to understand more and became comfortable with doing it by themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm talking about. People coming off the streets, I got a problem. I figure out a way to help them with their problem. I can coach them. I can make them smile and make them, wow, that was great. I love you guys. I'll be back next time, kind of thing. And send them back off with a pat on the back and a good luck on your resume, and so it's not exactly like a theme camp at Burning Man, because I do collect money for what I do there. But, the 10 principles don't always apply all the time. At Burning Man, you should definitely try to follow them at all the times. But when you're trying to be in the default world in real life and still behave like a burner, sometimes people try to hold themselves to all 10 principles at one time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really work out very well that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is decommodification at my store. But I mean, I do try to have more American-made products than imported products, for example, because it's not necessarily nationalism. It's just that we need jobs in America. We need, and I'm trying to be that local kind of thing. So it's hard, though. You can't
To be a good citizen.
big pens from America. They only make them in China, so.
But it's more like a psychological stance that you're taking, though. I mean, the store, the business, on the surface level may not be something, revolutionary different than, because that need has existed for quite some time. And so other people have filled that need. But from a psychological standpoint, you're taking the lessons that you've learned from the playa and you're applying it to your business. Yeah.
I have like a free book exchange, and I have a different look and feel to my store. The business model that I'm following has definitely been out and done. It's been out for about 20 years now, I think, and it actually first started here in San Diego. The very first postal annex was here in San Diego, right next door to a post office.
Yeah.
And they were able to turn that into a franchise. And
because people preferred to get that one-on-one attention.
That, and they didn't want to stand in the long line. They were willing to pay a little bit more to not have to stand in the longer line.
Yeah.
And that's a trade-off. Is I'm open earlier than the post office. I stay open later than the post office. So I'm more convenient to get to. But yes, I am more expensive than the post office. So it's that trade-off of time versus money.
That line thing is a business plan, man. Because I mean, I know that one of the things that I've read about a couple of years, like there's always been this misconception that, or maybe at some point there was some truth to it, when Starbucks would open up across the street from the mom and pop coffee shop, that the mom and pop coffee shop would go out of business. I'm certain this has happened quite a bit. However, what they found that has happened more recently is that the opposite has happened, where the mom and pop coffee shop ends up making even more money, because now you have people that come in to a street corner and they think like, all right, which experience do I want? Am I in a hurry to just get a cup of coffee or leave, or do I want to sit down and like maybe there's an acoustic musician in there? Maybe I want that that type of Joe that they have. Like it's funny though that exists, that options. People want options.
Well, yeah, that's what the free market's all about.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a capitalist, but that is, I do end up reading some business books and stuff. And yeah, just because somebody has beat you to market with your idea does not mean that you can't improve on that and come in and find yourself a niche in the market as well.
Is that not capitalism?
I think that is capitalism, yeah. But I'm not much of a capitalist. It's not my end all be all goal. You know, I'm more concerned about the window art. You know, I want to think about the way I present my store from the outside. And I spent a lot of time working on trying to make my store feel more like your living room office than an institutional kind of feel, which Post Atlantic has like an institutional kind of feel, just like the post office does. Yeah. I don't have like Formica counters. I have reclaimed furniture. You know, I've got an old entertainment center as my cash register table counter.
It takes like a certain level of understanding of humanities, because if I'm coming in to like, you know, type up my resume in your store and print it out, I would imagine that it's going to be better because I feel more relaxed. It feels a little bit more like home, not so much like this, you know, like you were describing, this institutional type place where you're kind of, they're waiting to kick you out as fast as possible.
Right.
And so I guess like that's sort of the changes that the burner community is bringing to the business world. They're very subtle.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess if you want to talk about the Burning Man influence on that particular point, it's that things don't have to look like their function necessarily all the time, you know? That you see that at Burning Man all the time. You see things that their function is, they look way cooler than what their function is. You know, we made in order to cook bacon, we made a perpetual bacon machine to where as long as you kept putting bacon on top of it, the grease would run it down into a fire trap and make more fire. And so, you know, perpetual bacon machine.
Oh my God, that's a vegan's worst nightmare.
Oh, we would keep tick marks on the side of it for every vegan we fed.
How did you know? Would they admit it after?
Oh yeah, they would always like, "Oh, I'm normally vegan, but bacon." So yeah,
there's something about the smell of bacon that's very different than pretty much every other food,
especially at Burning Man or even just when you're camping. But yeah. We had another fun toy too, the portable bacon making station. Yeah. Which was a fold up into a backpack. When you got to where you were going, it was like a wooden cabinet kind of backpack. And you drop it down, it had legs that would pop out, the top would flip up, and there was a stove there that had cubby holes underneath it with frying pans and a little ice chest full of bacon. We could carry about 10 pounds of bacon in it. Yeah. And we just take bacon out to the man and set up at the man base making bacon for everybody. And
so, not speaking of bacon, so the next plan, I'm assuming, is to continue Figment going.
Yeah, to continue Figment going. That's getting ahead of steam behind it now. I feel kind of like it's where Utopia was back in 2005. Was still, because it's not made up completely of burners. We've managed to get a lot of people from outside of the Burning Man community in the San Diego arts community to get involved with Figment, and that's interesting because they are figuring all this out as they go. Yeah, and they're creating this event themselves. Yeah. They're not necessarily modeling it after an event they've been to before, which was very interesting the first year. The second year we had seen it done once, and so we kind of had some idea what to expect. And the second year we were able to actually get the Chicano Parks artists to come out and commingle with us a little bit. And so now they got a chance to see what it looks like. And so now they're excited to come back. So now I think this next year it's going to be really interesting. They're going to have a lot more of the Hispanic presence there, and they're going to be maybe even thinking for the year round about what their next Figment project is going to be and bringing that out and doing something with it. So,
and that's a powerful thing. Because I mean, you know, one of the pink elephants in the room that people don't want to discuss is that there is a lot of racism involved in the Barrio Logan community not getting the attention. And if you have Figment, which is an outside event, it's an event that's not housed within the Chicano Park, within the Barrio Logan community, it's opening some doors. So hopefully there are some non-brown people joining in the conversation.
Oh yeah, it's definitely had a large non-brown presence, but we're starting to get more of the Hispanic presence there too. And it's going to be interesting. One of the positions we've created for Figment is a cultural liaison. So we've actually reached out and tried to find somebody from their community who we feel sort of understands our community and is able to represent us on behalf of us, to them. And that way he can speak it in their terms and in their language, our intentions. And that's going to help a lot. We've tried to do that 2 years in a row now, and it still hasn't really caught its footing yet. The guy who was going to do it last year ended up getting a job like 2 weeks before Figment started, and so he got his attention diverted into other fields of interest and got called away, basically. Yeah. So it still hasn't really happened yet, but we're trying to hold on to him and get him to work with us year-round to get Figment going, because it's starting to become a year-round planning situation at this point.
Yeah. Any thoughts in sort of the direction of San Diego's burner community, like our regionals, where it's all kind of going? Like, do you have any predictions on where the whole Burning Man community is headed?
Well, it's no longer counterculture; it's just culture these days, Yeah. So that's been that way for a while now.
Because that's actually a good point that you said that, because what we were speaking about earlier about a lot of people that go to Burning Man that are not familiar with the community. Mm-hmm. If I had to sort of describe them, I would say it's a lot of the younger generation, because now you have Burning Man culture influencing a lot of different cultures, like nightlife culture. Mm-hmm. And so you have some nightlife subcultures that I can say, like around San Diego, Southern California. I've seen them quite a bit. They dress like burners. They kind of look like burners. There's some hugs going on, but they're club kids.
Yeah.
And so the culture has been influencing them. So I think like maybe that's where the confusion comes from, is that there is this blending of cultures happening. Like you're saying, it's no longer counterculture. It's more
culture,
mainstream.
Yeah. And you also see it in your, commercials you see on television. You see these commercials, and sometimes you're like, wow, the art director for that has been to Burning Man.
Yeah.
They came up with that idea from something they saw at Burning Man. It's just like this art car I saw 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And even, Malcolm in the Middle did an episode. The Simpsons have an episode coming up now, finally.
They go to Burning Man?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta watch that.
South Park, all media, modern culture stuff is aware of it. It's on the playing field, and I think it's in the forefront of people's minds a little bit more nowadays. The people who you're going to have trouble getting through to other people, because there's still people, especially like down in the South and the far southeast of the United States, and maybe some of the more rural areas in the deserts and open lands too, where they don't understand things like Cuban food. Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, what is that? I don't want to have anything to do with that. Yeah. And then it's like, really, it's okay. Yeah. It's people do this, and it's just going to continue to grow and become more and more popular, and hopefully, be an influencing force on maybe even things like politics and world politics and the world stage and stuff.
Yeah. We need our first burner politician. I mean, I'm sure they're there. We just don't know about it. There's no way that out of every politician in the United States, nobody's been to Burning Man.
I'm sure someone has.
I'm certain someone has.
There's actually some
or at least been active in their culture.
Some Republican just
Grover Norquist.
Yeah,
yes.
Norquist.
This has been all over everything,
and that's great. Sure, I hope he has a great time.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I hope I run into him on a playa. I'm dying to have a conversation with that guy. I will carry a mic with me and say, we're doing a podcast. Just going to get him to sign something. Who knows? Well, cool. Brady, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
It's been a good conversation.
Excellent.
Good times. And then I do an outro thingy and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So there it is. That was our first episode. Burner Podcast. Got ideas? Love the show? Hate it with a passion? Did you think it was just the most miserable piece of shit you've ever heard in your life and you just couldn't stop listening to it the same way that we can't look away from a car accident? We'd love to hear from you.
You can drop us a line at burnerpodcast.com. There's a contact section of the page there, of the website. Let's try that again. There's a page on the website for contacting us at burnerpodcast.com. I can be reached directly on Twitter at Mr. Arash. That's MRARASH. If you want to get in contact with Brady, if you have questions for him, you can reach out to him at San Diego at figmentproject.org. San Diego is a city. You can Google how that's spelled, and that's at Figment, Figment, I think I spelled that right, project.org, figmentproject.org. And when discussing the show, please do use the hashtag BurnerPodcast. This episode is produced by Meg King. She books the guests. If you have suggestions for future guests, shoot them over to Meg King. Her email address is meggieking@gmail.com. Meggie King is spelled MEGGIEKING@gmail.com. Our online editor is Alpi, little Appalachian girl, playa girl with way too many nicknames. You can just put the email attention to her. It's burnerpodcast@gmail.com. We'll make sure it gets over to her. The Burner Podcast theme song is America's Horse with No Name remix by Joe-Man. Joseph. Joseph is an amazing Burner artist. The reason I really wanted this song to be the theme song is because when I first heard it, it just immediately took me to the Burn, and I thought it was just perfect. And I actually didn't know he's a Burner artist. I was connected with him by Tony K, the man in pink here in San Diego, and Tony said you should check this artist out, and I did, and I love the song. So you should check out more of Joe-Man's stuff at soundcloud.com/DJ Joe-Man. That's DJJOMAN. When I first saw his name, I thought it was Human, which is like a Persian name, but no, it's Joe-Man. So yeah, make sure you check out his stuff. He's got a lot of amazing music and mixes and really crisp, clean, original production. I was totally blown away by him. So I hope you enjoy the show. Let us know either way. We look forward to hearing more from you, as I hope you look forward to hearing more from me. New episodes are uploaded the first and third Wednesday of each month. First and third Wednesday, that's a bi-weekly, I don't know, is that bi-monthly, bi-weekly? We are a bi-podcast. Swing both ways, baby. Anyway, hope you'll join us next time. And it's been a good ride. This is me rambling on because I lost track of my notes and I forgot what I was going to say next. Oh, I think we're done. There's nothing else. Yeah, we're done. So until next time, love and light and all that other crap. Good night.
Remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain.